Yeah, the real sounds of Africa to once again kick off our World Football Phone-In. And this morning we're talking football in America, North and South, and players, of course, from over there playing in our leagues. If you'd like to join in the conversation, then do pick up the phone and give us a call. The number to call is 08085 909 693. That's 08085 909 693. You can text me on 85058 or email upallnight@bbc.co.uk. So, representing North America, the Major League Soccer area, and also the CONCACAF region in general of the Central Americas and the Caribbean, is our very own Neymar. John Arnold, good morning.
Morning. Good to be back.
Yeah, good to have you back. Are you in Fort Worth this morning?
Yes, in the Metroplex.
Okay. As I like to say, and I know it's a stereotype, but each time you're in Fort Worth and people don't understand why I do my Neymar, let me just say, yeehaw! And Tim Vickery, our Legendino, is in South America, taking care of any questions you have on football from over there, and players from over there playing in our leagues. And you are in Rio.
I am, yeah, in my splendid new apartment in Rio.
Oh, you've a splendid new apartment.
Yeah, I've just moved. Yeah, welcome to the region. Myself, together with Johnny A, that looks like it might slice up the World Cup for the foreseeable future. With Johnny A's lot perhaps getting it in 2026 and us getting the centenary in 2030. It could be 2 consecutive World Cups in the Americas. And Johnny, what on earth is a Metroplex when it's at home? What's that mean?
No, I'm in Dallas, but Dallas-Fort Worth region, we call it all the Metroplex. We just kind of jam it together. It's not everyone's favorite nickname, but it's just kind of the nickname for Dallas-Fort Worth. You hear a lot of different sort of nicknames because a lot of our cities grow together. You know, I don't know. There's a couple others. New York, New Jersey region is just New York, right? Even though that's actually New Jersey.
I believe they're called. Yeah. When you said Metroplex, I just had this image of you sitting in a shopping centre. I'm glad it's not that.
Never mind all of that. If I'm doing the yeehaws for John Arnold, I have to sort of do her name is Rio and she dances on the sand with you, don't I?
Well, if you must, if you want to,
just like
let out your inner Duran Duran, then let it be done.
It's already out, so I can't say anymore. Johnny, as you can imagine, there is one particular topic
that just promotes in me the reflex, flex. You know, it's just a reflexive action if you're going to come and all Duran Duran.
Are we going to be flexing like this all night long then?
No. You see, you're taking it to Lionel Richie now, aren't you, with All Night Long?
That was a good one. That was an under the arm one. I didn't realise that you were going to play a little bit sort of under the arm bowling tonight. I thought it was going to be straight Yorkies all night long. Anyway, let's get off. No more puns for just a moment, because there is one subject that's dominated the conversations by text and emails and otherwise. You can guess what that is, Johnny?
I'm assuming it's a potential arrival of one Wayne Rooney.
Yeah, is it the potential arrival of one Wayne Rooney? People want to know, or is it just Wayne Rooney? Oh, I shouldn't accuse him of anything. Is it just perhaps a way of having some influence over?
Think of those lawyers, man. Think of those lawyers.
I'm thinking of them. Trust me, they've got me once before, and it cost me a lot of money. So anyway, is he going to be arriving in the United States or not?
Well, it's certainly there's no done deal yet. But DC United as a club, they're sort of one of, it should be sort of a standard bearer of Major League Soccer in the early days, 1996, 97, 98, up until 2000, or even on a couple years, they were sort of one of the league's premier clubs. Washington, D.C. is no small market, no small city, and they were quite successful at the start. Bruce Arena, a familiar name still to U.S. soccer fans because of his time with the national team, was there for a while at the start. So anyway, it's a historic club, but one that hasn't really had its bearings lately. Now they're moving into a new stadium, as so many are now in the United States, built specifically for football, for soccer. And so they're kind of looking for a marquee signing in the summer. And they've said, we want it to be a forward. So they've been linked with a couple different big names. Carlos Tevez from Tim's region has been mentioned. Chicharito from my region has been mentioned as a potential target. And now it seems like they're sort of zeroing in on Rooney. So, will he, won't he? I don't know. It seems like he's their best shot right now, which doesn't surprise me. I don't know that Tevez is who you want from a sporting perspective. I don't think Chicharito comes from a money perspective unless he has a poor World Cup and just kind of needs to take what he can get. So, it's certainly an option, it looks like, for DC United. It's one that I don't love. You know, we've talked on this show many times before about MLS's transition from signing some of these players who are perhaps closer to retirement than they are to the start of their careers, a transition from that to players who are either entering or currently in their prime. And we've seen the level of the league raise with that. Can Wayne Rooney keep up in today's Major League Soccer? I'm not so sure. So I think it would be an interesting move for DC United. It's a team that does need help. They were the worst team in the league by points last year. Right now, I think they only have 5 points through their first 7 or 8 games, which is, again, the lowest point total of any team in the league. They've got some time to turn it around. But if you want to draw fans to that new stadium, sure, maybe you need a name like Wayne Rooney, but I also think you need wins more than you need a big name. So I don't think it's the right move, but it's one they do seem to be weighing up.
And this is one text from Richard from Oxford who says, look, basically, Wayne Rooney's proposed move to DC United is bad for the following reasons. One, he's not that out-and-out striker or hasn't paid that role for at least a good few seasons now to the amount of money DC United are willing to pay. That money could be spent on improving facilities or improving their youth academy. I just feel like he's another player going over there for, is it skimming retirements? I'm not sure. Anyway, but what do you make of that, Tim? Is it the time, should he go there, even in his retirement, or stick maybe to the lower leagues here?
Well, it's not retirement, is it? It's if he's going to go there for a lot of money, I can understand. I'm very heartened by John's tale there of more and more clubs in the US, including DC United, getting their football specific stadiums, and he is a big name, a big name attraction. And I was just thinking there while we were talking about him, and he hasn't played up front for a while. I mean, it's 5 years ago now. Yeah, 5 years ago that I was in the stadium here in Rio when the Maracanã reopened. Getting prepared for the World Cup the following year. He scored an absolute cracker against Brazil. A really, really special goal. One of the ones that you're very glad that you're in the stadium to see it. And if he can produce that 5 years further down the line for DC United, then he's a terrific draw. And why not? Why not? Because, you know, if with all due respect for Everton, that's where he started. He touched glory with Man United for a while, and at the moment Everton are just outside the Europa League running, and so why not go for a challenge for a club who perhaps? And John, do you see DC United in the foreseeable future as a possible challenger for the league title in the States? Is that the kind of challenge that might whet Rooney's appetite in sporting terms?
Well, no. They've been quite poor, as I mentioned, the worst team in the league last year, on track for the same this year. However, in the United States we have playoffs. If you can make the playoffs, anything can happen, right?
Exactly.
And I think from Rooney's, if I'm Wayne Rooney and you're DC United coming to me with some of these figures that have been reported by our colleagues in the UK, well, goodness me, yeah, I'm signing my name on the line yesterday. I just don't know if it's a good thing for DC United. I do think he might be a draw, but I'm not sure that he's the kind of player who gets people to the stadium week after week after week. I think you might buy a ticket, see Wayne Rooney once, and if he doesn't have that same standard that he did 5 years ago, like you mentioned, which I'm not sure that he does, do you keep buying tickets and keep going to the stadium to see him? I think in contrast, a player who is of a similar age bracket, similar, career, well, not similar career trajectory necessarily, but also was on Manchester United. You look at Zlatan Ibrahimovic. He's still a player who can influence the game, no question. The Galaxy bring him in. He starts. He's already scored 3 goals. He clearly influences games. I could see Rooney coming in and getting lost, similar to the Steven Gerrard experiment that the Galaxy tried. But from Gerrard's perspective, I think it was fine. He came over, made some money, lived in a nice place, and now he's coaching again. Or coaching for the first time, I guess. So I think it's a great move if Rooney can swing it. I'm just not so sure it's the wisest move from DC's perspective, either sporting or marketing. But, it seems like they'll try it. So I guess we'll be able to sit back and judge here in 4 or 5 months when we reconvene.
Let's speak to Dave in Portsmouth. Hello, Dave. Good morning.
Hello, mate. Hello, mate.
You good?
Yeah, not too bad, not too bad. I'm just wondering if there's Pompey is an atmosphere in the ground all the time. I'm just wondering if there's any atmosphere in the local grounds.
What, in America, North and South?
Yeah, all over the place.
Okay, let's talk about America North first. Is there any atmosphere in any of the grounds over there, John? And which grounds have the best atmosphere? What's the difference with the atmosphere from one state to another?
Oh, definitely. There are some that are struggling. Where I live here, FC Dallas, the atmosphere is. There are supporters who certainly give it their best, but you look at a stadium like Portland, Seattle, Toronto supporters are quite good, and the new team in Atlanta has really been welcomed with open arms. There's sort of I like it. It's a mix of sort of what you see, and I'm sure Tim will reference in his region of sort of drumming and sort of that Latin flair with some of the singing and chanting that we're used to from watching British games and even some of the games on the European continent. So in the U.S., it's an interesting culture. In Mexico, it hews much more closely to that of South America. Tigres is my favorite place to go atmosphere-wise in Mexico. They have an older stadium called the Estadio Universitario. It's on a university campus. The team is affiliated with the university there in the state of Nuevo León. But it's called El Volcán, the volcano, because of, well, obviously how it sort of comes up and erupts because of the fans. They have a couple really cool moments where everyone just goes dead quiet, and then you can just hear the one drummer pounding away, and then the entire stadium joins in. It's really quite moving. So some of the better atmospheres in the U.S.
With all due respect, it's not about moving. When David Portsmouth talks about the atmosphere in Pompey, the I suppose test of atmosphere is how it impacts on the match, and whether the home team plays better, raises its game because of the kind of support that they get, or whether the opposition team are much more reticent, particularly when it comes to taking corners anywhere near the home supporters. Do you know what I mean? So what is the atmosphere like in that respect? Do any of these atmospheres impact on the games dramatically one way or another?
Tigres haven't lost at home since 2017, April last year, so 30-some games. So, I mean, I think that's a pretty strong record. But, I've actually talked to some players in MLS. It's really interesting because they say, I honestly have a more difficult time playing not in the stadiums like Seattle, Portland, Atlanta, where everyone's into it. The fans are breathing down your neck. They're yelling at you when you go take a corner kick. They're giving the goalkeepers heck. I have more trouble playing in a place like Dallas, like Colorado, like Chicago, where those atmospheres don't exist, and it's difficult to kind of get in the game, to convince myself that I have to be at my top level, because sometimes it feels almost like a little bit of a friendly or a training session. So I've always found that interesting from players, but when it's as crazy as it is for a team like Tigres, it does show with the win streak at home.
That's a good point, isn't it, Tim, that sometimes the atmosphere that's built in a stadium can sometimes inspire the visiting team sometimes, the amount of stick that they're getting, it works against you.
Especially if the home side, the home fans are very, very quick to turn against their own team, as they can be in some place in South America. Then it can be a nightmare for some of the home players if they're really getting picked on. But we do have some magnificent atmospheres out here. I'm not sure we've got anything that really rivals the Pompey Chimes. From where Dave's talking to us from. Pompey Chimes fascinate me. That play up, Pompey play up.
Hang on. Let Dave do it for us. Dave, can you do that Pompey Chime for us? Do you mind? Because I'd rather you did it than Tim Vickery did it. Yeah, go on.
Play up, Pompey, play up.
That's worse than me. In fact, let Tim do it. He's better than that. Thanks, Dave. Tim, go on, have another go.
It's been done, Tim. But it is fascinating because that is such an old chant, and it comes from before there was mass singing as a huge part of the supporter experience in England. And if you watch some of the very, very old reels, the film reels of fans, they're waving their rattles and so on. But it was only when the COP in Liverpool really got going in the 60s that collective singing became a vital part, an integral part of the stadium experience. But the Portsmouth thing is much, much older than that. So it's a really old tradition, I think a fantastic tradition. We've got some great traditions in South America, and the best place I always think for atmosphere is Argentina. In fact, a lot of fan culture all over the continent and going up to Mexico as well. A lot of the songs and so on and the fan culture comes from Argentina. And I think quite often these days, the stadium atmosphere is better than the game in domestic football in Argentina. You come away from the ground and you've got those songs going through your brain. It's the Pompey chimes with more rhythm, quicker and with drums, and absolutely fantastic atmospheres in some of the stadiums. And if you look at the results, you can generally see in South America that the ratio of home wins to away wins is much greater than it is in Europe. If you compare, say, the Champions League in Europe with the Libertadores in South America, you get many more home wins as against away wins. Now, there are a number of reasons for that, and one is travelling time, different conditions. But another is the intimidating atmosphere which is created in the stadium. And that intimidating atmosphere can go too far. And you mentioned there about taking corners. And there are a number of places in South America where the visiting player, in order to take a corner, he has to have riot police protecting him with a shield. And that's a terrible, terrible thing, because really what you're doing there, when you've got your corner taker and you've got like 2 riot police there with shields, you're really saying to the fans, have a go. We're putting this shield up. Why don't you have a go? So it's a terrible, terrible thing, and that's something which really desperately needs to be improved. Needs to improve, because that's unacceptable.
Fair enough. And Dave, thanks a lot for being the first caller tonight as well. Incidentally, guys, we've got a couple of quiz questions for you. It's sent in by our listeners over the last few minutes, so I do want to get to these quiz questions at some point. And no cheating, no looking in some encyclopedia or Googling it, okay? Is that okay? Those are the rules, okay?
Done.
Tim, you happy with that rule? Yeah?
Yeah. Have you got a kind of whale making hungry noises in the background?
No,
or is that in the
I
Metroplex?
haven't. I think that is in the Metroplex for this morning. And you're happy with the rules, aren't you, Neymar? No Googling for the quiz questions.
Yeah, that's fine. I doubt I'll do well, but Tim's, got the Wikipedia going in his brain. So.
Well, tonight might be your night.
But I'm old, and as you get older, you forget things. But I'm now with my hand is across on my heart, solemnly swearing to abide by the rules of fair play.
Good.
And not look it up.
Okay, well, we'll come to the quiz questions in just a moment. They're good ones, by the way. Alistair is with us is it Tilcoultry near Stirling? Hello, Alistair.
Hi there. Yes, I've just got a question for John, if that's okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was wondering, Zlatan Ibrahimovic has left Manchester United to go to the Galaxy. Are there any players over in America who could play for Manchester United?
Good question. That's a good question.
Yeah, it is a good question. I have to say not yet. I think we see sometimes players go from this region to a big European team, and we get quite excited, and then they don't play. They kind of flame out. They come back, and it just doesn't. I don't know who that serves. I guess the player's agent, probably the player himself, maybe gets a pocketbook. But as far as right now, I don't see anyone here that's playing currently in MLS who I think would be a great fit for Manchester United, maybe in a couple years. Christian Pulisic at Borussia Dortmund, the American. If we're going to talk about an American, I think he could be a player who, Liverpool and Manchester United, I think he fits better at Liverpool, and they've had some links before, but he's one player from this region who I think maybe could do it. But that's MLS. I don't know. I think it's too early for some of those guys to make the jump. There's a few. I've talked about Tyler Adams on the show before, an American young player for the New York Red Bulls. Central midfielder. Maybe he in the next couple years will be a player I'd feel comfortable recommending for Manchester.
It's a really good question, Alistair. Should we throw it over to Tim Vickery to tell us if there are any players currently in South America who could play for Man United?
Yes, that's fine.
Yeah, Tim, currently.
I think they are. Although United don't have the greatest record with South American players, but the production line is always working here. There's one a Brazilian who's just joined or joining next season by Leverkusen called Paulinho. Meet the new Paulinho. who looks very interesting. He needs a left foot if he's going to go all the way. He's an attacking midfielder, but he's very dynamic. He shoots extremely well. And there's one, he's just 17. He's called Rodrigo of Santos. Now, he's become the youngest Santos player to score a goal in the Libertadores, and this is the club of Pelé. So that's an achievement. And he played a game last week against Nacional of Uruguay, and left wing, cutting in onto his right foot. And he's up against a very experienced fullback on Fucili of Uruguay. He's played World Cups for Uruguay. And Fucili admitted in the end that the only way he could get him out of the game was to foul him. He fouled him out of the game. It was a disgraceful admission, really. And Fucili, who's an experienced player and still not far off his prime, was saying, I've never been nutmegged 3 times in the same game. The acceleration that he had was really exceptional. He was going from 0 to 100 just like that. I couldn't cope, so I took him out. If you're getting Fucili, a very experienced fullback, saying this about a 17-year-old, you know that there could be something special there. So Rodrigo of Santos, Barcelona already sniffing around, but he's certainly one to look out for.
Yeah, Addison, thanks a lot for the call. Really appreciate it. Oh, by the way, I hate to tell you this, Tim. I had some news today from a very reliable source. Well, not directly from the reliable source. I heard it from my mate, Binzi, whose mate is a reliable source. I heard it in third hand, if you like.
If it came from Binzi, it must be true.
And it's all about Pochettino going to Real Madrid. Hold that thought. Any other? This is what I hear.
You can't have him.
This is what I hear. And the bookies have shortened the odds on that as well. Mark in London's with us. Hello, good morning.
Yeah, hi, good morning. It's a question in relation to the French football side, Les Hezbers, who played PSG on Tuesday in the French Cup final. Yeah. Although they were relegated last night, it's a bit of a up and down week for them. But my question was, do you have any examples of small clubs who have been successful in cup competitions in South and North America?
That's a really good question. Do you mind my holding it till after the news, Mark?
Not a problem.
I know you've been waiting patiently. I really appreciate that, but I don't want to rush it. And if you'd stay with us, because you might want to follow up on your question as well. Is that okay?
Absolutely. You're worth the wait.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, so let me ask my first of 2 quiz questions, though. I think we've just got time to ask a quick quiz question. And
You've lost the question now, haven't you?
No, I haven't lost it. No, I was doing the ip-dip, but then I remembered I couldn't do the whole ip-dip stuff. Anyway, look, the first question then. What's the difference between a kangaroo and a kangaroot?
I've
Apart
got
from
it.
the T on the end.
Yeah, the T.
You think that these quiz questions are that simple? Come on. You can do better than that, guys.
Well, I've never heard of a kangaroot. It's an entirely new concept to me.
Doesn't matter.
So
What's
I'm
the difference
with
between
this.
a kangaroo and a kangaroot? And this is from our listener who must remain anonymous for now.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the T.
He honestly he believes that's it. These are quiz questions. Why would I tell you not to Google it if it was just about the T?
Well, maybe I type in kangaroot and it'll say, "Do you mean kangaroo?" And then I've got it.
Look, I'll tell you what. I'm going to give you guys a moment or two to think about it. What's the difference between a kangaroo and a kangaroot? You don't know? No?
Well, kangaroos don't grow from roots, do they? They grow in their little pouch, little marsupial type pouch that they have.
Well,
so
you got the kangaroo bit.
I can't see anything there.
You got the kangaroo bit right. You're right, Tim. A kangaroo is a marsupial from Australia. Yeah, you got that bit right.
Yep.
Now the kangaroot bit.
Well, I've never heard of it. I don't know what one of them is.
That's the difference. Okay. One exists, one doesn't.
Yeah. The kangaroo exists. Yeah, we've cracked it. Well done, John.
No,
we got it.
No. A kangaroot is a Geordie stuck in the lavatory.
Across the UK.
This is BBC 5 Live.
Up All Night with Dotun Adebayo.
Yeah, if you'd like to join us for our World Football phone-in, the number is 08085 909 693. We're talking football in America, North and South, and players from over there playing in our leagues. We've got the Legendino Tim Vickery with us in Rio, covering everything to do with South American football and players from over there playing over here. And we've got our Neymar, John Arnold, who is in Fort Worth, taking care of any of your questions on North American and Central American football. You can text us on 85058, email upallnight@bbc.co.uk. But more than ever, give us a call on 08085 909 693. Just posed a little bit of a quiz. I think Tim might get it, but I'm not sure if John does. So, John, what is the difference between a kangaroo and a kangaroot?
All I know is it's just going to be one of those nights.
Yeah, it is. It is actually. It's going to be one of those nights.
I'm settled in. I'm like a Geordie in the bathroom.
Well, exactly. In the bathroom, he says. We call it in the bog. We call it in the bog, but you call it in the bathroom. So, did you understand that quiz at all? Did you understand the punchline?
Yeah, vaguely.
Yeah, because a kangaroo is a marsupial from Australia,
yeah?
And a kangaroot, or actually we've got our resident Geordie.
Not a Geordie.
Hang on, we've got our resident Geordie.
Not a Geordie.
She's probably from Sunderland. What have you done?
She is from Sunderland, actually.
I'm not from Sunderland. I'm from near Durham.
You're from Durham. Well,
and there's a great distinction.
Yeah, but for our purposes...
I'll pretend.
Yeah, no, you won't pretend. You are on.
No.
Tim, this is what I have to deal with on a daily basis.
I'm so glad you haven't gone into the diplomatic corps.
He'd just be upsetting everyone.
Yeah, of course I would. No, okay, but for us, you are our Geordie, okay?
No.
Do you mind? Look, for John Arnold, you're as good as a Geordie, yeah?
No.
Would you mind, Judy? Judy's
I'll say the words for you, it's fine.
Okay. in your best Geordie, could you just say kangaroot so that John understands how this quiz works?
Kangaroot.
Okay, so you're a Geordie, you're stuck in the toilet.
And I kangaroot.
Right.
Does that work? Don't you have a man who once said to me, "You do know I only understand half of everything you say to me."
Did I say that to you?
You did.
I said that to you.
You did.
But
I think you said it to me more than once.
I wish I could say that doesn't sound like you, but...
It does.
But at least I understand.
I'm sure it was said with love.
Well, I'm sure, but at least I understand half of what you say.
Yeah.
How much of what I say do you understand?
I just ignore the bits when you call me a Geordie.
Yeah, not very much, clearly. Thank you very much.
It's
Can I get a root now?
Yeah, you can't get out.
Well done.
You can't get out.
Well done. When Chris Waddle joined Tottenham from Newcastle, he he sat on the wing, kind of swearing in Geordie to himself, and no one understood a word. Monster choppers, mum, and no one understands a word. You know, sometimes we're a country divided by a common language.
I'm going to get a map and draw it for you now for the Northeast to explain everything to you.
Right. Thank you very much, Judy. I really appreciate that. You're a good sport, and she definitely didn't want to be described as a Geordie. And as far as
Methinks she doth protest too much.
So we still got Mark in London with us. And Mark, apologies for all that foolishness. Just remind us what your question was.
Yeah, no problem. The tiny French club, with a population of about 15,000, played PSG on Tuesday. A budget of 2 million against 500 million. So David and Goliath type matchup. Although they did get relegated last night, so a bit of a up and down week for them. So my question was, do you have any examples of small clubs that have been successful in cup competitions in North and South America?
Should you start with South America, Tim?
Why not? Because we do. This really comes from the fact that our club football is probably weaker than it's ever been because everyone gets sold. So it does open up space for surprise clubs to emerge. And there have been a number. I remember a little club in Uruguay a few years ago. They're kind of little. They were from a village or something, and they won the league. And they had a mascot that was a cow. So they kind of did a lap of honour with their cow. But one that really stands out from just the last couple of years is a little side from Ecuador who got all the way to the final of the Libertadores. Now that's all the way to the final of the equivalent of Europe's Champions League. They're called Independiente del Valle. They're from just outside the capital, Quito. They've got a little stadium, which, you know, if it can hold 8,000, you know, only just perhaps. And they got all the way to the final, only narrowly lost in the final. And on the way, they eliminated River Plate, they eliminated Boca Juniors, Carlos Tevez and all, beating them home and away. It's just an incredible story, and they only narrowly lost in the final. And the idea of this club, Independiente del Valle, is that they look to produce players. That's what they do, and they do it with great professionalism and with a lot of success. And of that team, they had 2 experienced Uruguayans to give them a little bit of backbone, and 9 locals, and they've sold. Within a year, they'd sold I think all of the 9 locals that they had. So it's a model that works, but you know, you would never see something like this in Europe's Champions League, and it's such an interesting contrast because in Europe you get more or less the same clubs arriving at the decisive stage of the Champions League year after year, because that's where the quality is. On our side of the Atlantic, things are nothing like as predictable. There is room for these kind of surprises, but the root cause of this is that even the big clubs are continually selling their best players. So it's a kind of trade-off you're looking for. The ideal would be to have both quality and unpredictability, but that I think is very, very difficult to achieve. So in Europe you have the quality, but in South America we have the unpredictability.
And in North America, what do you have over there?
Yeah, the best cup competition in the CONCACAF region is actually in the U.S., the U.S. Open Cup, and it's been around for more than 100 years, has a really long, rich history, and it has seen some lower division teams win it. Last time that happened was right at the end of the 2000 or 1999 was the last time, right at the end of the century, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. The Rochester Rhinos, I think at the time still called the Rochester Raging Rhinos from New York, they won it. And yeah, but now it's much more difficult with MLS teams sort of more established. It's still a really fun tournament, though. I was out at the first round this weekend, a team called NTX Rayados, named after the club in Monterrey, the Rayados, against the Fort Worth Vaqueros from very low leagues. And last year we saw an amateur team actually make it all the way to, I think, the 4th round, a team called Cristos, based out of a liquor store, a bunch of guys who, not much different than myself or our listeners, I assume, a lot of them, get together every week, play a game, go out, have a few beverages after, sponsored by a liquor team. These sort of just regular guys who liked drinking ended up playing DC United, the MLS team that could have Wayne Rooney. They lost, their run was ended, but it's the farthest an amateur team has gone in several decades. They actually were eliminated in the first round this time around, but it was a really fun story last year to see those regular guys make it some real cup magic. Didn't make it as far as the team in France, but yeah, amateurs all the way to the 4th round.
Mark, as a fan, though, would you rather your team, because this was the situation for Wigan, wasn't it, in the year that they got demoted, won the cup amazingly, but the FA Cup went down, got sent down. Would you rather that your team won a cup competition for the first time, or stayed in the top league or whichever league they're in?
I think most would probably go with the cup success, because that's what they're going to be remembered by. And I think a lot of Wigan fans have said they would never take away that cup win, even though they got relegated. So, yeah, I would go with cup success, to be honest with you.
I wouldn't, I wouldn't. Well, what about you, Tim? What would you go with?
A little bit of glory, I think. I'm with the Wigan fans. I was thinking about this actually, watching, that fantastic escape of Huddersfield. When they managed to hang on for grim life.
It was like an FA Cup victory for them.
I suppose it was. But what has it gained them? It's gained them the right to go through a similar level of suffering next year.
Whereas, but now they know what it takes, though. Last season they didn't know, or this season they didn't know what it takes. Now they know what it takes. They're in a better position.
But it's very, very difficult to sustain. It's going to be more suffering and more suffering and more suffering. And good luck to them. Terrific. But at least, if you've done the Wigan, if you've won the FA Cup, you've won. And you got your lap of honour and you've got your celebration and it's something really concrete to celebrate.
Yeah, but you're stuck in the
if you get relegated,
or whatever,
if you get relegated, unless you're Sunderland, you kind of have the expectation that you're going to start winning more games than you lose. And so the fan experience will be good on the way back up, as long as you've planned sufficiently for going down. So, but that moments, I think life is moments. As football fans, we love the moments. That moment that Rooney scored a goal in the Maracanã 5 years ago, that will never leave me. I suppose maybe as a Tottenham fan, I have to declare an interest here. I like moments more than consistency.
Yeah, I like the moment when Pogba took the ball off Dembele and knocked you lot out of the FA Cup effectively by passing it on to Sanchez's head, and they got the equaliser, and then they banged another one in afterwards through Herrera. That was a moment. I enjoyed that.
That was a moment.
It was a moment. It wasn't the kind of moment you're thinking about. Not the kind of moment you're thinking about. I didn't enjoy it, actually. But anyway, and from your perspective, John, cup glory over league success. I know you lot don't get relegated. I get that point. But if you were like just a casual observer, let's say, to the English Premier League, which one would you go for?
Yeah, give me the glory. Give me the glory. Even I think you can have the same sort of thought about it. What about one good season, a Leicester situation, one good season where you win it and the rest of the time just sort of being in sort of mid-table mediocrity? I think you take that. I think you take that rather than consistently finishing top four. At least I would. I read a piece this week. I can't remember exactly where, but it was a championship club fan making the case there is life and it's more fun to go watch your team, as Tim said, get a couple wins instead of just drudging along at the bottom of the Premier League, losing week after week, fighting every tooth and nail for a loss to a big club. I think I would also take the trophy, put it in the trophy case, celebrate, enjoy the parade, and then maybe get a couple more wins the next season, even if I'm not in the top division.
Having said that, if you saw the Huddersfield fans celebrating getting a draw against Chelsea,
it was fantastic.
Yeah, if you see, I think they would say
an American manager.
Very good. That's a very good point.
He's more German, isn't he? Really? Are you really claiming him?
He is. Well, he's got
wore the stars and stripes with pride.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, if he was German, he'd be Wagner. Whereas he's like more Wagner. He's like more like Robert Wagner. Anyway, and thank you, by the way, Mark. That was an excellent question. Yeah, I look forward to hearing from you again, if that's all right.
No problem. Thank you.
Cheers, mate. All the best. James in Falkirk in Scotland is with us. Hello.
Hello. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, thanks very much. You've got a question about football in Mexico?
Yes. First of all, just like to say the show's brilliant. I listen every week. Usually on the podcast, but it's absolutely brilliant. Love it.
It's very kind of you to say. Thank you. Really appreciate that.
I've got a question for John, actually. I'm across in Mexico in a couple of weeks to watch Scotland play in the friendly. So it's basically just kind of using you guys as a kind of trip advisor, just if there's any advice on maybe things to do or places to see, and also just kind of general advice. And also, I enjoy watching Scotland throughout Europe, and we usually generally quite well received as fans the countries we go. I just wonder if to expect a kind of similar welcome for the Mexican fans.
Yeah, being TripAdvisor, let's have an authentic advice now, not one of those, the negative ones, if you don't mind. Do you know what I mean? One of those phony ones.
I've got nothing negative to say about Mexico City. I love it. It's a great place and you should enjoy yourself. First bit of advice, the Estadio Azteca, get there early. First of all, to take it in, take a few photos, etc. But second, you take the train, you take the metro station, metro works fine, and then you get to this thing called the light rail train, the Tren Ligero, and it is just absolutely jammed. I don't think they run any extra trains on game day, even though everyone's going to the stadium. Nearly 100,000 people, almost everyone taking the train. So get there early. It's going to be quite hectic. It should be a great atmosphere, and I imagine that Mexico fans, there's no real rivalry, I don't think, between the two countries, unless there's something I don't know about in the footballing history. But so I think they should be happy to see you, perhaps a bit bemused. In Mexico, I think it gets a bad rap at times, but, I would say just try and experience what you can. The street food is incredible. Grab some tacos, just kind of point. You should be able to order if you don't have any command of Spanish. There's some amazing sites. The Museum of Anthropology apology, has these artifacts from ages and ages ago. They're really phenomenal. I also enjoy Frida Kahlo's house, the Casa Azul, to see some art. And that neighborhood of Coyoacán is pretty near the stadium, actually. Might be something you could squeeze in on the morning of match day. You can walk through her and Diego Rivera, both artists, walk through where they lived. It's an amazing architecture, and just the art, as you would imagine, is really well designed. So those are probably my two highlights as museums to hit. Make sure you get some street food, like I said. Mezcal is from Oaxaca, a different region, but is on offer in plenty of bars in Mexico City if you're looking to tipple. And I think it's great. Feel free to hit me up on Twitter if you want some more specific recommendations. But that's sort of my thumbnail. It's an enormous city. Make sure you kind of plan, like I said, go with time. The metro works great. Uber is also really cheap if you want to just hop in a car. So I think you'll have a great time. And I think the Mexican fans, like I said, might be sort of amused to see you, because there's not always a lot of traveling fans, but they should welcome you with open arms. Be happy to share a taco or two with you outside the stadium, and I hope you make the most of your trip.
Aren't you forgetting something?
What's that?
James, do you want to tell him?
I'm not sure what I need to tell him.
Well, he's forgotten something.
What's he forgotten?
No, you tell me.
He mentioned the key words. He said tacos and tipple, and
that's true. Yeah. It would seem as
ticks all the boxes.
Almost all the boxes. He forgot to mention the mariachis. Can't go to Mexico without any mariachis, can you?
Now,
do they know how to play Flower of Scotland?
Well, they probably will if you pay them enough. Yeah. What about that? Will they?
Well, the mariachi culture is more Guadalajara, which is a bit out to the west. I'm sure you'll be able to find some bands and that kind of thing playing. And yeah, you tip the right guy. Maybe he can do a little improvising. But yeah, that's a little bit more out the west.
Yeah. We'll try and find somebody and we'll teach them, I'm sure.
And make sure you let us know when you get back, James, please. I'd appreciate it if you gave us a call and let us know how it went.
Yeah, definitely. We'll do it. Are you going to the game, John?
Yeah, I'll be there covering for Goal. And actually, I think I'm doing the phone-in from Mexico City on that trip as well next month. A little preview there for you. So yeah, we'll talk then. And yeah, like I said, if you want to reach out on Twitter, I'm happy to give more specific recommendations. But that's my thumbnail.
And if you happen to bump into each other amongst 100,000 other fans, then make sure that you pull James into the World Football phone-in when you do it.
I'll see him on the light rail, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'll be the one wearing the skirt.
the one out of thousands of others, yeah.
Well, I think there's only 400 of us, so
only 400 of you. So yeah,
you really spot me. It'll be easy.
Which tartan will you be sporting?
Oh, I'm not sure that. And you're asking very specific questions.
Oh, right, okay. I'm sorry that I asked. Then.
The Adebayo tartan, I'm sure, is very popular in those parts. Not coming down to Peru. Because Scotland are playing Peru on May the 29th in Lima.
Not actually, we did look at that as well. That'd be an interesting trip as well. Although we did actually read that the Peruvian FA charging £88 for a ticket for Scotland fans.
Good grief!
I don't know if that's. I've only read little online, but just from the message boards that are going for Scotland fans, I don't know if that's kind of in line with what they normally charge.
Yeah, well,
no, not at all. But remember, for Peru, it's absolutely massive. This is their send-off before they go to their first World Cup since 1982. So all of Peru wants to be in that stadium. So I perhaps maybe it's only justifiable on those grounds, but that's poor. And there's a special reason as well that they've invited Scotland. Because it reminds them of one of the greatest moments in their World Cup history when they beat the Scots in '78. You know, Ali McLeod, the Scotland manager, was giving it all the north and south, and he was saying Peru were actually the South American champions at the time, and he said they were a team of old men, and and Peru were really, really up for that game and won 3-1. And the current Peru side, they have equalled Peru's all-time record for going unbeaten. So if they avoid defeat against Scotland on May the 29th, they will break a new record. But I think they may have forgotten, and the '78 World Cup is the perfect proof of this, how perverse Scotland can be. Because that World Cup, Scotland went saying, we're going to reach the semi-final, anything else is a failure. They lost to Peru. They drew with Iran only because they got a crazy, crazy own goal. And then they went and beat Holland and nearly eliminated Holland and saved themselves. So, if Peru were expecting Scotland to come over and roll over, then it may be a different story from the one in 1978.
And James, I hate to say this, but 88 quid is what you have to pay if you didn't qualify. Stephen Bolton's with us. Thanks, James. Appreciate that, and have a good journey. I've got this second quiz question to ask. Yeah. Are you both ready?
I'm ready.
Yeah, go on, fire away.
Andy wants to know why squirrels swim on their backs. Or why did the squirrel swim on its back?
Because no one ever taught it the front stroke.
Not bad, Tim. No Googling.
I've been so worn out trying to play chess against my dog.
I know.
I'm not sure I have an answer for this one.
Well, it's a funny thing. Didier Drogba would probably get this one right. Why did the squirrel swim on its back? Well, to keep its nuts dry.
Yeah.
Across the UK. This is BBC 5 Live. Up all night with Dotun Adebayo.
Yeah, is it Gerd or Gerd? And I apologise, Gerd. It's Gerd, isn't it, in Swindon?
Good evening, yes.
Good evening, okay.
Yeah, it is.
Because I should have thought of Gerd Muller. I went off thinking Gerd, but I should have thought of Gerd Muller immediately. Is that who you're named after?
My name.
Yeah, is there any connection with the great German centre-forward at all?
Only in so much as I changed it by deed poll in 2003. So
wow,
I'm a huge fan of the 1970s.
Yeah,
and the 1974 World Cup is the first major event on television, colour television, that I remember. And compared to watching sort of the football of the day, which is on a Sunday afternoon or Saturday night, it was just full of colour, like the Dutch shirts and all the rest of it. It just captured my imagination.
Fantastic.
Yes.
And Gerd Muller is one of the greatest centre forwards in footballing history, but you don't hear much about him. I don't know whether
hardly ever.
Yeah, why is that? Do you think?
I have no idea, Dalton, because he scored 68 goals in 62 internationals.
That's just crazy, isn't it?
They weren't playing patches; they were playing sort of top sides.
Yeah, that's just.
He didn't score spectacular goals though, so that's probably one of the reasons.
Well, he scored. You don't have to score spectacular goals. You have to score goals, get them over the line. If you're saying, was it 68 in 62 internationals? Did you say?
I beg your pardon?
Was it 68 goals in 62 internationals? What did you say?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, 68 in the 62. So it was over one goal a game.
That is incredible, isn't it? Tim, why don't we hear about him more then, in that case?
Well, I think he was doing some coaching with Bayern Munich. I think he's had a little bit of a drink problem in his time as well, which has maybe lowered his profile, and hopefully he's over that. Because he really was just a magnificent centre forward. He's the kind of fella who sometimes you wouldn't see him in a game, and then suddenly the ball's in the back of the net. An out and out goal scorer, absolutely magnificent. I don't have the memories in colour because we didn't have colour, but it's the first World Cup that I remember as well, 74, and obviously he's the man who scored the goal that won it.
Yeah. Built like a bull, if I might say so, like a Franny Lee
huge
type
thighs.
of centre forward. Yeah, he did. Yeah.
Huge thighs.
Tight shorts in those days.
He did special weight lifting to develop his thighs, and also not a lot of people know. Yeah, not a lot of people know this. That's my Michael Caine impersonation, by the way. But he was the designated outfield player to play in goal should Sepp Maier be sent off or injured.
You're joking.
Wow.
He's a dwarf. How can he go in goal?
He was only 5'9", and he devoted an hour a day extra training with a goalkeeping coach to play in goal.
That's
Would have been something to see, wouldn't it?
How comes you fell in love with him so much that you went to the trouble of knowing all these sort of obscure, if I might say so, facts about him?
Yeah.
I mean, there's one thing.
Stuff, yeah. I mean, I'm really into the 1970s in general, football-wise. because it was so exciting. I like the mixture of the characters playing at the game at the time. In English football as well. I mean, nowadays there's so few. It seems like there's fewer characters, but I think it's probably the exposure that people get nowadays that makes them more reluctant.
I love the way
had a more kind of incipient glamour in those days.
I love the way that all the footballers had the same sort of Peter Osgood hairstyle with the sideburns. Gerd Müller certainly did. But do your family call you Gerd then?
No, they're the only people that I don't insist upon. Most people I know now sort of just know me as Gerd.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, you don't have to give me a shirt name on this program because I've already got one.
Yeah, you've already got one. And, you've broken the rules. You've broken the rules. But I think on this one occasion, we're going to allow this break of protocol because you went to the extent of getting it changed by deed folder. Yeah, and you do have a question for both Tim and John, don't you?
I do, yes. Paul and Tim, big fans. I love.
John and Tim. John and Tim. It's John.
Sorry, John. I was thinking of the Galatasaray there, wasn't I?
Yeah.
Many apologies, John. Yes, many apologies.
But it does go to show that you listen very keenly to the World Football Phone, so we'll allow that as well. We'll allow that.
Yes, I do. Yes. Also, I'd like to ask the question for John and Tim. What was your favourite decade for football in your respective area, the regions?
Good question. Do you want to go first then, John?
Yeah, I will. Unfortunately, I don't have a great number to choose from yet. I guess maybe fortunately, I guess it kind of depends on how you look at it. I've been reflecting on the 90s, which in the United States was a great period of growth. The Kansas City, well, now they're called Sporting Kansas City, but they were called the Kansas City Wizards. And before that, the Kansas City Wiz, named after the Wizard of Oz, of course, which is set in Kansas, or briefly is in Kansas and then goes to Oz. But you can understand why a team wouldn't want to be called the Wiz. So then they changed their name to the Wizards. Anyway, they've just unveiled a retro shirt that they're going to be wearing, and it reminds me of going to games with my grandparents in Kansas, the Kansas City area. And so, you know, the 90s saw the U.S. host the 94 World Cup. It saw MLS being born. I don't remember much on the field beyond, going to games as someone who was under 10 years old. But I think that it's maybe underappreciated, the fact that really the kind of growth we're seeing now, the seeds were planted and watered certainly in the 90s in the U.S.
That's funny. I thought you might have said the 70s too. What with
that's what I thought. That's exactly.
Well, here's the thing. I think that era with the NASL, and you mentioned those characters. My goodness, they had loads and loads of them. I think that certainly is something that is sort of a bright, quite, you know, in two ways, right? It's a high point and also was just full of color and joy and magic. I didn't live it. I don't know what happened in that era, and I think it's something where we're going to have to keep going back and really learn from our elders, honestly, in the United States. The typical soccer fan here is very young. And we don't remember that time. I wasn't to be born for another 2 decades. So I would like to learn more about that. I've enjoyed some of the documentaries that have been produced on the NASL era, some of the books. But really, we do need to sit at some of the and listen to some of the guys who are there writing those stories and some of the players who took part, learning more about that era, because it's a really fascinating one, but one that I didn't experience.
And what about you from South America, Tim?
Yeah, well, the time that I've been living here since 1994, I mean, there's a piece of information which I think sums it up. I moved across from Europe to Brazil at exactly the same point as the original Ronaldo, moved from Brazil to Europe. I always think South America did very badly out of that swap deal, frankly. But what that kind of exemplifies is the real start of the globalised era. And the globalised era has been very, very hard on club football over here. Very hard on club football. The recent years have been good for the less traditional countries in South America. Since we had the introduction of the marathon World Cup qualification format of all 10 nations playing each other home and away, it's been terrific for the lesser nations. So, Ecuador qualifying for their first World Cup ever in 2002. The rise of football in Venezuela. The rise of on Paraguay making it to the World Cup quarterfinals in 2010. It's been good to see all of that. But in general, I think that the thing has been dominated while I've been here by the loss of the quality players from club football. So if I've got to choose a decade, I've got a couple of choices, I think, and one would be the 20s. In the 20s, the thing is really getting going. When the Copa America starts in 1916, and in the first years, it's held annually, or kind of every 2 years. And it really leads to a massive, rapid increase in standards and to a sport that started with the elite going down to all levels of society. And you begin to see that the fruits of that in the 1920s. Uruguay go to the Olympics, which was the nearest thing you had to a World Cup in 1924 in Paris, and wiped the floor with everyone. And no one had heard of them before. They didn't even know where Uruguay was on the map. And Uruguay are beating everyone with a style of football that people have never seen before. And then 4 years later, in the Amsterdam Olympics, they did it again. This time, another team from South America went over, and that's Argentina. And so then there's a hunger for a World Cup. We need a tournament that's open to professionals as well. And South America stages that tournament. It's the first World Cup. It's in Uruguay in 1930. So that decade, that 20s decade, is a decade of huge, huge progress of the game. It's a little bit interrupted then by the Wall Street crash in 29. That plunges the region into depression. And they have to get out of that. And by the 40s, it's boom time. The 40s... Obviously, Europe has its mind on much more serious matters with the Second World War, but the 40s for South America are a boom time for football, especially for Argentine.
You're really caning it for the hobnail cap, hobnail boots and cloth caps, there, aren't you, Tim?
Well, yeah. And if you look at the crowds from that era, they're all wearing caps. It's true. But the 40s is a golden era, especially for Argentina. It's where some of the most joyful football was played. And I think it's not only the football, it's the context in which the football is taking place. Because these are societies which are growing and are developing. And there's a happiness around the stadium experience, which I think has been lost now. So if I could go back and live a decade to watch South American football, I think it would definitely be the 1940s, both for the spectacle on the field, but also for that sense that you're living in a society which is moving in the right direction.
Well, God blimey, Governor, I didn't think you'd go for that. That's thank you very much for that.
Good, thank you very much for the call, appreciate it. Look forward to speaking to you again.
Goodbye.
Yeah, thank you. We've got some more quiz questions for you, Gerald. Should we stick to the football?
I think we're probably on safer ground.
Oh, why not? The quiz questions are going so well.
Well, just this last one. I haven't
managed to shoehorn David Niven or Terry Thomas into an answer
not yet.
So
not
I'm lost.
Not yet. You might be able to with this one. This is the last one for now. Russ in Leighton Buzzard says, what's the difference between a buffalo and a bison? You ought to know this one, John. A buffalo and a bison.
Yeah, I mean, it's something. It's something about I don't know. A bison only found in America? That's not a riddle.
Is that it?
I don't know.
Tim?
This might be another accent one, isn't it? I can see an accent one coming on bison. On bison?
Go on.
Bison.
Go on.
It's a Brummy sink, isn't it?
Well, you're the closest. Well done, you. Well done, you. I'll give you a round of applause. Finally, you're getting to know the measure of our listeners. Yeah. The difference between a buffalo and a bison, for your benefit, John, is you can't wash your hands in a buffalo. Anyway, with the World Cup around the corner, this is from Mike in Coventry. With the World Cup around the corner, would we expect a new winner? Or will it be the usual suspect? Germany's put here, but there might be others as well. My money's on France, he says. John?
Yeah, I think it's my favorites. I did a bracket, I guess, filled out my projections the other day, and I ended up with sort of the old reliables. I do like France. I think they have a talented team, but I think they might still be another cycle away from actually doing it. I've got Germany as my favorite, and then I like Brazil and Spain, so it's sort of the usual suspects. I don't see any of the CONCACAF nations, the three that are in this time around, making any noise.
Tim?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to look beyond those usual suspects, isn't it? So let's broaden it out a little bit. Who else, apart from the countries who've already won the World Cup, who else could win it one day? I suppose, and if you're going for a first-time winner this time, then Belgium might be a place to look for. And I can't imagine them winning it, but they have that such a talented generation, and you never know in a cup competition. So, just perhaps. But longer term, you wonder about, and if they really get their act together, you wonder about the United States. Mm-hmm. You wonder about Mexico. And Mexico have already been world champions at certain youth levels. Maybe Mexico one day. From South America, in terms of the nations that haven't won it, which is everyone else apart from Uruguay, Brazil and Argentina, Colombia, one day, it's a big population, it's a football crazy place, they reached the quarterfinals last time, one day Colombia. And after that, you're looking at Africa. It's going to happen one day, but you can't see it in a foreseeable future. And Dalton, do you think that Nigeria are in with a chance of making serious progress this time around?
No, sorry, because we've had a lot of difficulties, all sorts of turmoils with regards to the federation, and I don't think they'll stand a chance. But I hope they'll get out of their qualifiers and get to knockout round. But that's not even certain. It's a tough group to get out of.
It's a tough group.
It's really tough group to get out of. But, one day there will be a sort of a sense of unity in that country. And when that comes about, I think you're looking at people then being able to possibly win a World Cup. I think the culture of a country has a lot to do with their possibility. You talk about the German work ethic, for example. You see every player on that field culturally trying to work for every other player, or for the greater good, if you like, not for individual prowess or otherwise. They're all trying to work for the greater good, and that's the kind of thing that is needed in the Nigerian team.
And bouncing off that, I think, Tim mentions Mexico maybe down the line after their success at the Olympics at the U20 level. This year, Mexico's been stuck at the round of 16. They can't make it past this round. It's this mental block. This year, instead of saying we want to get past that round, they're saying we want to win it all. We've heard Chicharito has said that. Andres Guardado has said that. Hector Herrera, this week, Jesus Tecatito Corona. These team leaders are saying, no, forget about that sort of limited goal. We want to win the whole thing. So I don't think it's going to happen. I think they have a really difficult path. They have Germany in their group. If they advance second out of their group, they're probably crossing with Brazil if Brazil wins their group. A lot of things that have to happen for that to kind of come through, but that seems the most likely at this point. Of course, this could all go totally wrong, but I think that, Dalton, that culture change that you mentioned, you have to also have belief, right? I think that these old reliables, they expect to win. Their goal is to win. Their standard is to win, and I think that does serve also as motivation. Sometimes too much. Maybe in the case of Brazil, it sort of weighs you down. Yeah. But sometimes when those expectations are there, it can be good.
But then in that case,
such an interesting case, because in Brazil they talk as if it's like heads or tails. Oh yeah, that year Brazil won the cup, and next year we lost it. The next time we lost it. As if there are only two possibilities. It shows how high the bar is set. John, can you imagine? And I can't imagine Mexico winning this year. And they're an attractive side, but under Osorio, they just give you so much space. So you can see in one of those games something going badly wrong, as happened, in the two big tournaments under Osorio, the Copa America in 2016, when they got massacred by Chile. And it happened to them again last year in the Confeds. And they just give you so much space. You can see it going wrong in one game. But can you imagine? Let's assume that the States and Mexico host 2026. Can you imagine one of them in 4 years' time, in 8 years' time, being serious challengers on home ground?
I think it it really depends on how these sort of youth development projects continue. You see Mexico with more openness toward letting players go at a younger age. You see some of the clubs committing to playing players from their academy at a young age, starting players in league games when they're teenagers and getting them in that competitive atmosphere that's been the norm, in your region, Tim, for so long. These 17-year-old players, if they're good enough, they're in the first team. That hasn't necessarily been the case, and certainly not in the U.S., where in MLS, we want to, after Freddie Adu, we've said, no, forget it. We need to bring these kids along slowly. Now you're seeing that start to change as well. MLS academies are finally starting to bear fruit. If those projects are continued to be fostered along intelligently, and you have, a lot of it depends on the managers. What project do they put in? Are they sort of integrating from bottom to top and top down as well, trying to get the experience of those players down to the younger players? Then I think it's possible that one of those teams, and I think they both could have a case, because even though the U.S. obviously failed and isn't at the World Cup in Russia, I still think there's a lot of promise and potential in the U.S. as a footballing nation. Mexico, has no doubt the passion for it. Can they get the organization? So really, to me, the question is all about organization and fostering along the right ideas, getting the right people in the right places. Mexico doesn't have the history to give you that encouragement, but they are talent-wise way far ahead of the United States at this point. So maybe, but I still think it might be a little too soon. Maybe I'm being down, but I'd be surprised. I'd love to see it, obviously, but I think that there's too much that can go wrong at an organizational level for both to really become one of those groups, one of those teams that believes they can do it and has the culture in place.
And talking of Freddie Adu, people are always asking, what's he up to now?
Plays in Las Vegas for a USL team, the second division in the U.S. He's getting a few minutes, not the superstar we thought he'd be, but hopefully he can have a nice career there. And Las Vegas, not a bad place to be.
How old is he now?
He's like my age. He's like 28, 29.
Feels like he's been, in American.
He's gone. He's gone from promising youngster to grizzled veteran with nothing in the middle, hasn't he?
Yeah. A few flashes here and there. He had a really good Gold Cup in 2011, and signed a couple good performances here and there, but certainly never materialized into what was hoped for him. He was out of the game for a while.
What went wrong?
I think that's similar to Brazil, right? Just weighed down by expectations. And also in the U.S. now, we're finally starting to get a structure where we can bring along talented players, but that wasn't in place when Freddie came through. So I think, he got some bad advice. He was in some difficult places. Too much was expected of him too quickly. That confluence of things, I think, can really weigh a player down. And then he was signing with these sort of clubs in these far-flung places where they expected him to come in and be the savior. And that's no formula for a, 21-year-old, 22-year-old kid to succeed and come through either. So I don't think he was ever sort of treated right, but there was no structure around him to kind of get him in the right place.
Okay, if you'd like to join in the World Football Phone in for the last quarter, if you like, between now and 4 o'clock, then do pick up the phone and give us a call on 08085 909 693, talking football in Europe and South America and North America, and players from over there playing in our leagues.
5 Live is digital. Get the app, search for 5 Live podcasts, and listen on digital radio.
I don't know why people are sending us jokes tonight. No more. It's a question from John.
You don't know why.
Yeah. The question, I do not know why. Benny Carlisle says, I have a question for John Arnold. I'm a lifelong Carlisle fan for what I must have done in the past life. Okay. We had an American winger called Johan Smith for a spell, and we got him on loan from Bolton on the 6th and the 7th. I always remember him because he once, 2006 to 2007 season. He'd written it like an American, 06, 07. Anyway, from Bolton in 06, 07. I always remember him because he once fell over the ball and won a penalty. Did he go back to the States? And if he did, what happened to him? Also, have either of the experts either watched the mighty Cumbrians? Okay, let's leave the mighty Cumbrians to one side for a second. But what happened to Johan Smith, do you know?
Yeah, I haven't heard that name in a while. Last I heard, he was in a lower league in Canada. I mean, so the U.S. and Canada. Canada's starting its own league, which will be exciting. But last I heard, he was in a combined league, a second division that doesn't exist. It's a little complicated. We've talked about some of the lower league issues on the show before, but he was playing in that league, and I'm not sure if he's still there or even what he's up to these days. But he did come back to sort of the North American soccer ecosystem, but I really couldn't tell you how he's doing or where he is now.
Okay, and have you seen the mighty Cumbrians?
No.
Carlisle? Haven't seen
them play?
No,
I never have, no.
Okay, well, fair enough. And Tim, have you seen them play?
I'm possibly a kind of, the second cup, the League Cup, whatever it's called. I might have seen them at White Hart. I'm struggling to remember. I do actually remember Carlisle being top of the league. 73, 74. And after a few early rounds, they were top of the league. And unfortunately, at the end of the season, they were relegated.
Can you ask John why Leon Bailey does not play for Jamaica? Asked Darren.
Yeah, it's a good question. So Leon Bailey, linked with a lot of Premier League teams. He's an exciting talent from Jamaica. Plays for Bayer Leverkusen right now. He broke out this year. The short answer is politics. Now it's a little complicated, and I hope I don't get this wrong. He was adopted by a coach, a gentleman who also coaches and is a very, very good developer of talent, was taken to Europe for different trials and stuff, caught on in Belgium. And that gentleman and the Jamaican Football Federation, the JFF, the FA, don't get on. And it's always been sort of a dispute from there, is my understanding. He made a decent point in an interview with, I believe, the New York Times a couple months ago, which is that, even if I'm not representing the Jamaican national team, that doesn't mean I'm not, a proud Jamaican. That doesn't mean I'm not flying the Jamaican flag abroad. And I think that's a fair point. At the same time, he's talked about trying to get eligible for some of these other countries. There's been really good scholarship done online by Jamaican fans showing that really, unless something changes, Jamaica is the only way he could play international football. He's a talented player, and Jamaica could use him. They're sort of trying to get back to the level that they were a couple years ago, had a good run to the Gold Cup, etc. They could definitely use a player like him. I'd love to see politics sort of be put aside and him to suit up for the Reggae Boys, because I think he'd be a nice addition to the region. But at the same time, it seems like his club career is going quite well, and maybe it could be an impediment, and he doesn't want to risk it. So politics and his situation is why we haven't seen him for the Reggae Boys yet. But like I said, I'd love to see that get resolved, because I think it'd be nice for everyone involved.
Several people asked me, and I'm sorry, I'm just seeing these emails now, how can you watch the programme on the webcam? Well, by going to the BBC 5 Live website, bbc.co.uk/5 Live. And if you watch on the webcam now, if you can get it, it's basically, you see, if you follow it to Up All Night, you can see it's a watch live or, listen live, etc. Just click on the watch live one, and you'll see me looking very, very serious and very professional, very handsome, as I always am. And I'll try and flag up Tim's gift for you as well if you manage to watch online. Anyway, this is a question for you, Tim, from is it Rogero in Nova Hamburger, which I guess means New Hamburg, does it? Nova Hamburger?
Yeah, it does, yes. Yeah.
And is that New Hamburger or just New Hamburg?
New Hamburg. I think has huge German immigration, massive German immigration to parts of South America, especially the south of Brazil.
Okay. Anyway, the question is for you, Tim. Taking into consideration some quite elastic Brazilian victories in this Libertadores, some important away victories like Palmeiras over Boca, plus some Brazilian clubs like Grêmio and Atlético Paraná escaping from the traditional counters and set pieces all the time model, and trying for tiki-taka, keeping possession, using the midfield with intelligence to advance. Do you see a light at the end of the tunnel? Is all lost because occasionally or economically South America can't compete with Europe?
Yeah, this is an interesting. The Brazilian league has only just started. We're only at 4 rounds, and we are seeing something of interest. And you'd expect Brazilian teams to have an advantage in South American continental competitions, because the big Brazilian teams, they just have much more money. They pay much higher wages than teams elsewhere in the continent. And there are a number of high-profile Argentines in Brazil. There are no high-profile Brazilians in Argentina. although perhaps a new TV deal in Argentina might level it up just a little bit. So you'd expect Brazilian clubs to have a massive advantage, but we haven't really seen that on the field in recent years, and we've seen a lot of very outdated football from Brazilian clubs. And a lot of Brazilian coaches will tell you, no, there's nothing new in football. Football hasn't changed. It's almost as if the whole Guardiola revolution, and me and Mina, we disagree on many things. One of the things that we disagree on is Pep Guardiola. It's as if the whole Guardiola revolution has passed the domestic Brazilian football by. It is difficult for Brazilian coaches to work. Their working conditions aren't easy. There are too many games. There's not enough time on a training ground. And if you try anything different and you don't win for three consecutive games, you lose your job. So it's a difficult atmosphere for innovation. But there are just a couple of interesting signs, and our friend there, he mentioned a couple of them. One is Grêmio, who are the reigning South American champions, benefiting from the fact that the Libertadores, the Champions League now, it takes place over the whole year. Before, it was all over by, say, July. But Grêmio won the title at the end of November, and the next year's competition starts in January, February. So there's more continuity there. They are a very, very attractive side to watch. Now, when they came up against Real Madrid in the World Club Cup, they hardly crossed the halfway line. So even there's still a massive gap between the best in Europe and the best in South America. A huge, huge gap. But it's interesting to see them have a possession-based method of play. And the other that he mentioned, Atlético Paranaense, which is a smaller club from the south. They've got a coach there, Fernando Diniz, a former player, also a psychologist, a very interesting character, who is emphatically bringing a Guardiola-type model to Brazilian football. Where it's a high defensive line, it's a compact team that's looking to keep possession. Now, it's a risky model of play. If you get it wrong, then you do leave your defence very exposed. There's a lot of space there behind the defensive line, and especially if you're playing with relatively slow defenders. And that team, they're running into problems. I think that they haven't won in the last 4 or 5 games. It'll be very interesting to see under pressure if they can maintain belief in the model of play, or as they start losing, there's a bid for safety for the old kind of a deep lying back four with slow centre backs. But there are just 1 or 2 interesting signs of experimentation and a new generation of coaches who've grown up watching European football and have a more global outlook. And really, on the success of the national team under Tite, it's all down to the coach. Basically, the same players under previous coaches weren't producing. As soon as the coach came in, it's a different story. And a lot of that has to do with him implanting modern ideas of football, bringing the defensive line further up the field, having the team more compact. They're much, much better in possession. For me, the phrase that hangs over Brazil's triumphant World Cup qualification campaign is the coach saying, "I have learnt how to learn." In-depth studies of the best football that's taking place in European clubs. How do they achieve numerical superiority in the opponent's half of the field, brought into the Brazilian national team when there's no lack of talent, but there has been a lack of modern ideas. So that, I think, is also an interesting example for young Brazilian coaches to watch. So I am more optimistic about the direction that football is taking on the field here than I was, say, 6 months ago.
Yeah, and John David says, "Viva Mexico! Viva Mexico!" He also says, "Up the Villa." How do you say that, Tim? You can do it much better. Up the Villa.
Up the Villa, mate. Up the Villa.
Up the Villa.
You've got to make it sound like a moan, even though it's an exaltation. Up the Villa, mate. They'll be just as dreadful this year as they were last year. Tim.
Anyway, he says,
encourage me. You put the ball on a penalty spot. Expect me not to boot it in.
But he's got some tip of advice for James in Stirling, who's going to Mexico. He says, "Great show. There's a whole bunch of Brits going to the game, Scotland versus Mexico, expat teachers, etc. James can look forward to a great time at Plaza Garibaldi for the mariachis in Mexico City, and the local San Patricio pipe band are playing Flower of Scotland at the Azteca before the game." So there. So you have it.
Nice.
Yeah. And we've got Marwan with us in Egypt. Hello, you all right?
Yeah, I'm fine, Dutton. How are you?
Yeah, very well, thanks very much. Go on, you got a question?
So, I've got a question about Mo Salah and the Champions League final.
Of course you have. Of course you have. Of course you have.
So, there's a bit of an argument here in Egypt, especially between neutrals and Real Madrid supporters. So, there's some who want Real Madrid supporters in particular who want to support Liverpool at the final because Mo Salah could win the Champions League and could even win the Ballon d'Or if he won it and could be the best player in the world. And the others say that no, I support Real Madrid my whole life, or I love the team, so I want to support Real Madrid whoever they play, even Mo Salah. I can understand some Real Madrid fans and some Roma fans in the semi-final, especially one a big YouTuber in the Middle East called Amrin Fouhi did that. He supports Roma, but he wanted Liverpool to go because of Salah. Salah is huge. It's not even a big deal. He's all the deal in Egypt, so I can understand that. But I don't know if any similar situation happened in
It
Arnold.
happens all over the world. It happens all over the world.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask them, and also
the easiest thing here is to ping this back to Marwan. Now, Marwan is a diehard Liverpool fan. Let's imagine, and perhaps we don't have to wait very long to imagine it, but let's imagine that Mo Salah is playing for Real Madrid against Liverpool in the final. Who do you support?
I'll support Liverpool. I wouldn't be sad if we lost it. I would be, but I would be happy for him if he wins the Champions League. And I love him. Especially when he was in Roma, I didn't see him a lot, and I loved him. He was a nice player, nice guy. But when he came to Liverpool, it was another feeling. He plays brilliantly in Liverpool, more than any other team he played before, and I guess the World Cup, and he's closer to the team I love. So I think it makes it special. That Salah is for me now the most favorite player in the world. I love Lucas Leiva. He's not the best player in the world, but I love him. Salah is the best player in the world for me, and I love him so much, especially Egypt.
But you love Liverpool more. Yeah, that's what you say.
Yeah.
You love Mo Salah.
I love Liverpool more.
Love Mo Salah. It sounds like you love him so much you would marry him. But you love Liverpool more. Yeah?
Yeah, but I can understand the people who want to support Mo Salah because he's a big, really, really big deal in Egypt. We haven't had any play. I didn't imagine that Mo Salah could be a Ballon d'Or, even considered for the Ballon d'Or at the start of the season. It's not important for me. I don't think the Ballon d'Or is an important thing for any player. Team honors is more important, but it's a big deal. You have potentially one of the best players in the world, so it's.
Yeah, I'm going to ask the pundits your question though, because Tim tried to throw it back at you. I'm going to throw it back at him now, and one at a time. Tim, player versus club. Have you ever had that dilemma? And which way? And did people in Brazil or elsewhere in South America have that dilemma? I can imagine that sometimes there is a dilemma with regards to the greats like Messi and any other players from Brazil and so on.
Well, how about when, because they only meet clubs from South America and clubs from Europe in the final of the World Club Cup. Estudiantes of Argentina against Barcelona of Messi. So, there would have been some Argentines there divided on some of them wanting Messi and others against him. Because he's against an Argentine team, What makes this one, the one with Mo Salah, especially interesting is, and he is the one, and he is the African star, the global Egyptian star on a scale that we've never seen before. So I think it's South America produces so much talent that perhaps the thing has never been quite as acute as it is now. But maybe CONCACAF has better examples.
There are some examples in South America. Let's say Alexis Sanchez. There would have been some, I imagine, spuds in Chile who loved Alexis Sanchez when he was playing for it was Barcelona he came from. Was it Barcelona he was playing for?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, before. Yeah. And then he moved to Arsenal and then divided loyalties. And now he's moved to Manchester United. I'm sure there are some Arsenal supporters in Chile who are thinking, what's he gone and done now? Do you know what I mean? There will be some players like that from different countries who are the standout players. What do you do? I
don't know. Where does your loyalty go to first?
Because you feel like a traitor if you're not supporting the one icon from your country who, by themselves, I'm thinking of something like George Weah in Liberia, can not only uplift the country, but also turn it around. And
Marwan has taught us a good lesson. It's a collective sport, so. Maybe the team, the collective, should always have precedence.
Yeah, but don't you also think that this social and political impact that this person can make? Because Mo Salah is probably influencing a million young Egyptians in playing football. They all want to be Mo Salah. The way that Tiger Woods influenced so many young. And the Venus Williams in her system, young black African Americans to play those sports and so on. Do you know what I mean?
I remember talking about this issue. Do you remember the first time that Lewis Hamilton won the Formula One?
Yes, that's a good example. It's a good example.
It was in Brazil. He did it in São Paulo. I was on Brazilian TV that night, and they were all moaning, because he was competing against a Brazilian, Felipe Massa, and I said, well, hang on a minute, you're all moaning, but this has been a great victory. Now, young black Brazilians will be watching this and thinking, well, that could be me, in a way that wouldn't necessarily be the case if it was Felipe Massa. So that's an interesting one, and sometimes the inspirational factor transcends nationality.
How about in North America? I imagine, John, if there's a great North American footballer emerges, and he plays for a team that even you don't like, you'd have to sort of cut him a bit of slack, wouldn't you?
Yeah, definitely. I think, the occasion that springs to mind is in Mexico. La Liga, Spain is huge, of course, and everyone, like all around the globe, you pick Barcelona or Madrid. So when Chicharito, the Mexican forward, was on Madrid, I think that was difficult for a lot of Mexican Barcelona fans because, for so long they'd been, living and dying with Barcelona. Now all of a sudden on your rival team you had your most people's favorite player. So that's the most specific case, I think, for North America. And, we talked about the Americans who, wake up every morning every Saturday morning and watch a Premier League team. So certainly it happens now and then. You got Jeff Cameron, DeAndre Yedlin, but the magnitude of what Egyptians are going through, I think the one consolation is that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You can support either one, and Salah.
No.
He's going to do well or he's going to do poorly, whether you're rooting for him or not.
You see, I suppose the best example of this is my own experience when Adebayor was signed to Arsenal. Now, everybody knows that I'm from Tottenham. Suddenly, I go around my own neighbourhood, and for the first time in the 50 years I've lived in this country, I'd go to a store, they say, right, what's your name? And I'd say, Adebayor, A-D. I know how to spell that. And actually they didn't, because he's got an extra R at the end of it. But I had to live, I've got a couple of brothers who are Gooners. They may have loved it, but I had to live with and in fact, they probably didn't love it when Adebayor went to Tottenham afterwards. But here's the conundrum. What could I do? Finally, there was a footballer in the United Kingdom with my surname, and I just could not bring myself to...
We had an example.
Yeah.
We've had an example from early on tonight. Change your name by deed poll.
Exactly. Yeah, I could do.
Call yourself Danny Blanchflower. That would work.
Why did you have to choose Danny Blanchflower? One of the great footballers. I wouldn't actually mind Danny Blanchflower. It's just
it's a good name as well, isn't it?
It's not a bad name. It's not a bad name. Anyway, Marouane, thank you very much for that. It's one of the many dilemmas that you get when you support football, I'm afraid. So good luck in the Champions League. And when Mo Salah goes to Barcelona, well, it's only Mo Salah. Anyway, thank you very much, guys. It's been a pleasure.
Cheers.
Tim, thanks very much. John, many thanks as well. And, I didn't give you the last of the quizzes, did I?
Not too late.
Well, it is too late for now because you're going to need some thinking time, but I'll save it till next time. Of course I will. Anyway, great to speak to you both.
BBC 5 Live.